In this video, we're going to be wrapping up section 3.1, which is on measures of central tendency. And then the next section we'll talk about variation. However, we're going to talk about one more type of average to close this section out. In the previous video, we talked about a trimmed mean, which is basically an average in which you trim off the outliers. So you trim off some of the highest and some of the lowest numbers. And today we're going to talk about something called a weighted average. So in this average, certain values get maybe a higher weight, meaning like more impact than other values might be lower weighted, and they sort of have a less impact on the overall average. So a weighted average or a weighted mean, also be called either one of those, is an average taken in which we multiply each value by a factor reflecting its importance. So if some values are more important than the others, then we might give them a higher weight. And if something is less important, it's going to get a lower weight. The formula that we're going to use for this, we're going to use this X bar, and I'm going to write a little weighted, which just says that's a weighted mean. That's what it means. So a weighted mean, the formula that we're going to use some Greek symbols here. That's delta, which means the sum of, all x values. So it just looks like this, sum of xw. And I'll explain what that means in just a sec, over the sum of the w's. So this, believe it or not, is a formula giving us the weighted mean. All right, let me explain what this means. All right, so we obviously know this is the weighted average. That's what that X bar weighted means. On the top, this symbol, that means the sum of. So it's the sum of all values times their weights. So we're going to multiply each value times its weight, and then we add them all together. And then on the bottom of this fraction, which we're going to divide by, we got that same symbol there. That means the sum of the weights. W stands for weights, the sum of the weights. So it's the sum of all values times their weights divided by the sum of the weights. That is how we compute a weighted average. It really isn't too complicated. I think less so than the trimmed mean. So let's see if we can apply this. We'll look at two examples. And actually, before that, I'll just do it. If you like basically what I had in words, here's a little explanation here. How to find a weighted average. You multiply each data value by the weight. We add those all together, find the sum of these weighted values, and then we're just going to divide by the sum of the weights. So basically what I just said here in words, if you want to write these steps down. All right, so let's look at the first example. Let's say you enroll in calculus in college. First semester of calculus, you earn the following grades. On quizzes, you average an 82%. Homework, you get 90% on your homework. First exam doesn't go as well, you get a 76%. In the second exam, you get an 85%. Your grade in this calculus class is calculated with weights. So the quizzes are worth 20% of your grade. Homework is 35% of your grade. And each exam is worth approximately 22.5% of your grade. So you add all these together, considering their weights, and that's how you get your final grade. All right, so let's see if we can apply this. So again, these are the values up here. And then these down here are the weights, right? The circle ones are the weights. So our first step is to find the sum of the values times their weights. So X bar weighted. Let's just start with the first one. So quizzes are 82%. So I'm just going to do 82 times the weight of the quizzes. So quizzes weight is 20%. So 82 times 20. And the sum of means we're going to add them together. So plus, next I've got homework, right? Homework, I got a 90%. Times the weight, well, homework is weighted at 35%. So I'm going to multiply that by 35. Each exam is worth 22.5% for the next one. So I got exam 1, do that one next, so plus exam 1, 76, times its weight. So it's worth 22.5%. And then last one, I got exam 2, plus 85, and the weight for exam 2 is also a 22.5. So that's my numerator. On the denominator, I'm going to divide this by the sum of the weights. So for all my weights, I've got 20% for the quizzes, 35 for homework. Now each exam is worth 22.5. So I actually got to write that 22.5 twice, plus 22.5 plus 22.5. I don't write it once, I write it twice because I had 2 exams. If there were 3 exams, then I would need to do it 3 times. So basically all these numbers in parentheses, I'm just adding up all of those numbers, which I put in the parentheses there. Right? And typically you should get, if you're talking about a percentage, you should have got 100 because you got 100%. You could also write these as decimals if you wanted to, 82 times 0.2, 90 times 0.35, so on and so forth. But then just make sure the weights, you're doing 0.2 plus 0.35. So either way, you can consider these percentages as whole numbers or decimals. Either way, you'll get the right answer. All right, so let's go ahead and just do this calculation. Just make sure you do order of operations. You should be good to add those all in at once. I like to just do in parentheses like 82 times 20, close parentheses, plus 90 times 35, close parentheses, plus 76 times 22.5, close parentheses, plus 85 times 22.5. Right. And the sum of the weights on top, the sum of the top is 8412.5. And then the sum of the weights on the bottom, I would do this in 2 steps just to make sure the bottom weight should be 100%. You add those together, 20 plus 35 plus 22.5 plus 22.5, and you should get 100 because you got 100% of your grade. So you divide there, and yeah, it's just going to move the decimal 2 places, 84.125%. So then your grade for this whole course would be an 84%. So this is particularly helpful. Let's say, for instance, you know how your grade is calculated, and you want to make sure that you get a B for the semester in this course, and you haven't taken the final exam yet. So what you can do is you can actually work backwards, and you can figure out, well, if I need a B, what's the minimum score I need to get on my final exam to make sure that I have a B overall. So maybe you've got a few classes, and you're going to sort of like divvy up your studying time based on, oh, this one I need to get a higher final exam grade in order to get the grade that I want to achieve. So this is helpful. All right, our second example, for health class, you are trying to figure out how many hours of sleep you get each night on average, but it varies day to day. So for 15 days, you write down how many hours that you slept. And this is what you came up with. You had 9 days where you slept 7 hours a night, 3 days where you slept just 5 hours a night. You had 2 days where you got 8 hours of sleep, and you had 1 day where you only got 4 hours of sleep. Find the weighted average for the number of hours slept. So on average, how much did you sleep? So that's going to be X bar weighted equals, it's the sum of the values times their weights. You might have just a little bit trouble identifying which part is the weight and which is the values. This column here, this is actually our weights, because how many times we did it. Well, we slept 7 hours 9 times, so 9 is the weight because we did it 9 times. Slept 5 hours 3 times, so 3 is the weight. It won't matter for the top because when you multiply, it doesn't matter the order, but the bottom will matter. You want to make sure you have the right weight for the bottom. So when we do these, we're going to do 7 hours times 9 days, 9 is the weight, plus 5 hours times 3 days, plus 8 hours times 2 days, plus 4 hours times 1 day, over the sum of the weights. So 9 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. Let's go ahead and add all these up. All right, and on the top, we get 98. And on the bottom, it did say 15 days. So it's good to just add this up and make sure you do get 15, which you do. So 98 divided by 15, which is 6.53 hours. And then just check your work at the end. Make sure that seems reasonable. You had 9 days where you slept 7 hours, so it's pretty close to 7. You did have several here where you slept 5 hours, so that would bring it down a little bit. A couple where you slept 8, so one where you slept 4. Yeah, that seems reasonable. 6.5 does seem reasonable. All right, so that's it. That's what a weighted average is. We do this a lot without thinking of it, but weighted average, again, is just assigning a certain value to data points that would have sort of more importance than other ones. So you're going to have 3 problems over this. Reach out to me if you are struggling or you need additional help. Thanks.